I would say that women should be their own biggest cheerleaders. Okay, we have to tout our accomplishments. We have to express why we're deserving of that next job. We have to raise our hands more often for that next job, and do so when we're not 120% ready. It's okay. That's, again, that challenge and that risk taking that I talked about.
皆さんようこそ. Welcome to Nichibei Global Talks. I'm Joshua Walker. Women belong in all places where decisions are being made. This is a quote from our hero in the fight against gender discrimination, the late Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, or as I like to call her, the notorious RBG. The news of her loss in September caused many of us, not just women, to reflect on the state of gender equality and women's empowerment. Therefore, for the final episode of this Nichibei Global Talk series, we decided to focus on the topic of promoting women in the workplace, and more broadly, the issue of promoting workplace diversity and inclusion. Joining us from Japan is Ms. Mari Kogiso, who is a Director of Diversity and Inclusion at Fast Retailing. In this role, she also manages the company's Human Rights Committee. Our guest from the United States is Ms. Ida Liu. She's the head of Citi Private Bank North America and a member of the Private Bank Global Leadership Team. She also sits on the company's Women's Steering Committee, which focuses on the advancement of women. I'm excited to have these two very accomplished female leaders as our guests, who will discuss how the private sector is driving progress in workplace diversity and inclusion. Thank you for joining us today. Mari-san, what are the current state of women in the workforce where you are in Japan? What are the trends you are seeing, and what are some of the factors affecting the current state of things?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me today. I think Japan has made some progress since the Abe administration started so-called Womenomics in 2013, but still it is not enough. Japan still ranked 121st out of 153 countries, and that was 11th place decline from the previous year. On a positive note, we now have a most generous parental leave program among OECD countries, and women can take up to 2 years of paid leave after giving birth. Number of nursing care facilities increased by 30% in the last several years, and the employment rate of female working population exceeded 70%, which is quite high among OECD countries too. But if you look at Japan corporate sector, only 7% of board members are women, and only 15% of managerial positions are women. And if you look at gender pay gap, Japan has 24%, which is quite high among OECD countries. And there are so many reasons behind this. And I think one is amount of the unpaid labor Japanese women take up at home. Japanese women spend more than 3 hours 40 minutes each day on unpaid labor, and when men takes only 40 minutes. And so many women think that like working long hours at a corporation and doing all these household work after work is very difficult, and tend to choose part-time job, not the full-time job. Another reason is unconscious bias. According to some study, Japan has a very strong unconscious bias. And many women think that it's easier to stay quiet, not to stand their head out, because they have been educated that way.
Ida, how about in the United States, and particularly in the financial services sector that your company represents? Has there been progress on the state of women in the workforce and more broadly on the workplace diversity and inclusion?
So Josh, thank you first of all for having me. It's a pleasure to be on with Mari-san and with yourself in Japan Society. I hope that you all saw the very exciting news out of Citigroup last week that we are going to have our first female CEO, Jane Fraser, leading the helm in February of next year. I'm so thrilled that she has shattered the glass ceiling effectively for us here at Citi. We couldn't be more proud of that. And it's a real statement for the progress of women and women leadership in the financial services. So really excited about that. Diversity and inclusion is really the heart of what we focus on at Citi. We think it is absolutely mission critical to everything that we do. In fact, over 50% of our board of directors is women. And that's quite a statement in New York financial services. So we're making very, very solid progress. And we are also the first global financial institution to announce our gender pay gap numbers. I think that's very important that we did that. We did that because we truly believe that what gets measured gets done. And it's important for us to be vulnerable, to show where the gaps are, and to make sure that we are focused on the targets to hitting them. So we've done that very deliberately. We have the gender pay gap number out there. We're working to close that gap as much as possible in the years to come. And, I do believe that when we hold our businesses and our teams accountable, results happen. So we're measuring that, and luckily we're making very, very good strides there. I will also mention more broadly, as we look at the United States and North America landscape, we are making very good progress. Now, we're not there yet, but we are taking baby steps. I'll give you an example. In California, they mandated that every single public company board has to have a minimum of 1 woman sitting on that board. Now, it's a movement. We certainly want to be more at just 1. We want to be at 50, but it's still the right direction of where we want to go in North America.
Mari-san, can you tell us how important diversity is to the success of your company, Fast Retailing, and why? And currently, how diverse is your workforce? And are you setting specific targets like Ida just mentioned?
We firmly believe that diversity, not only gender diversity, but all kind of diversity is at our core value and imperative for the success of our business. This is for 2 reasons. First, we operate in more than 25 countries, and employee diversity is critical to understanding various demand by various customers. We have developed the concept of lifewear, which means that our clothes are made for all, not for a certain group of people. And to produce such lifewear, we need to know what is really needed by all kinds of customers. Secondly, we believe that diverse and inclusive workplace will improve our productivity, promote our creativity, and bring better business result. We believe diversity brings us a huge benefit. We had our first female CEO at Uniqlo last year, and we are already seeing a positive benefit both on our business and on our employees. Many female staff says that now their voices are better heard and their opinion are better reflected on their product and on our services. And this is critical for the success of our business because more than half of our customers are female. And in terms of numbers, 70% of our employees are women. But when we look at managerial positions, we have 38% of female ratio. So we want to bring this up to 50%. And at the same time, we want to have more women at C-suite level.
Ida, what about at Citi? How diverse is your current workforce, and how is diversity linked to the success of your business?
Well, Josh, thank you very much for that question. So firstly, I'm very proud that our team in the private bank is 50% women and 2/3 diverse. There is no doubt in my mind that our tremendous performance over the last decade is a direct result of the diversity of our team and our wonderful employees. We've got to make sure that we match the clients that we serve. And that we're not homogeneous, right? That we have different perspectives, that we come from different backgrounds, that we can challenge one another, because diversity truly drives innovation. And I'd like to share with you a recent comment that I got from a client discussion. The client said to me, "Wow, your team to me resembles the United Nations." And to me, that was probably one of the best compliments that I could receive as a leader of an organization at Citi in the private bank, to have that kind of embracement of the diverse workforce that we have. So I do think that it drives a ton of innovation, a ton of creativity. The different perspectives are very welcome and very important. I would also say, Josh, that Citi as a firm is also extraordinarily committed to diversity. We just announced that we are committing $1 billion US dollars over the next several years to close the racial equity gap. That's everything from investing in minority-owned businesses to helping underprivileged minorities with education and the like. We are seriously committed to doing that. We don't just say it, we actually do it. So we're very, very proud of that, and it's absolutely mission critical to us at Citi.
Mari-san, in Japan and at fast retailing, how do you think about promoting diversity? What are some of the challenges and also best practices that you've identified to make your workforce more diverse as possible?
Well, as I noted, promoting diversity is one of our company's top priorities. It is a challenging task, but it is ongoing. But I still get asked the question, like, what's wrong if we promote the best people and they happen to all men? And when I get this question, I talk about unconscious bias, that they may feel that they are giving the fair decision, but everyone has unconscious bias, so their decision may not be all fair. Well, but everyone think that, like, when it's come to unconscious bias, they don't have any such. So we started the unconscious bias training for the management people. And we also started a project so-called Unstereotype School. And in this project, we work with a student, of the Women University in Tokyo. What we do is we first study about the gender stereotype. Then we give them a box full of clothes without telling them which ones are for women and which ones are for men. And then we ask them to choose the outfit they like the most without having any gender stereotype. This is a very simple project, but it's interesting to see that some students choose a very different outfit from the one that they were wearing before. And we got a very good feedback from these students that as an apparel company, we are also creating gender stereotypes through our product, because we produce more pink clothes for girls and blue clothes for boys. I think that we should be very aware as a company of these stereotypes that we are creating, and we should work harder to eliminate these stereotypes.
Ida, you mentioned how much your company values diversity. How is Citi able to recruit both the best and the brightest while ensuring diversity, and what are some of the best practices to promote diversity that you've been able to identify there?
Sure. Firstly, I just want to comment that I agree with Mari-san's approach around bias training. I think it's very important, even for those of us who don't think we have any bias, to go through that training, because sometimes you realize, wow, there are some things that you didn't think about. It opens up your eyes to multiple different perspectives, which I think is very important. So we also do that at Citi, very similar to what Mari-san does with fast retailing. But on top of that, I think that in order to make effective change in an organization, we have to start from the very beginning, the entrance point to our organization, in the way that we recruit talent out of colleges, out of schools, to join us at the very, very entry levels of the organization. We've got to make sure that we're recruiting diverse talent, and then we're building that diverse talent up over time and providing the diverse talent the resources to continue to grow and to succeed. So some of the best practices that we've seen across our organization is, number one, make sure that you get diverse talent from the start. In our analyst classes, we try to make sure with 50% female representation on those analyst classes, that it's a very diverse group of individuals represented in the analyst classes. And equally important, that we have a very diverse interview slate for positions. So making sure that we're interviewing diverse candidates and that we, as a selection committee, are also diverse. So having both sides is very important, to having open-minded discussions around candidates and recruitment of diverse individuals. I will also emphasize that we have 5 affinity networks within Citi that help really advance the different diversity discussions. We have Citi Women, Asian Heritage Network, Black Network, Pride Network. So we have all these different networks that will help our individuals, our diverse individuals, think about ways to overcome some of those challenges to get to the next level. We have extraordinarily robust training sessions to help develop our next generation of leaders. So I'll take women, for example, because I'm on the steering committee of Citi Women. We have different development programs for women at the director level, at the MD level, to help them get to that next level, training with educators, with mentors, with coaches, to really help guide through some of the typical challenges we see for our female employees and try to break through that to supply them with all different types of mentorship and resources to get to that next level.
Mari-san, how important is the role of government in Japan in promoting women's empowerment? What can governments do to be helpful on this front?
I think the Japanese government has a huge role, but we also have to admit that they have tried, they are still trying, but as a result has been limited so far. Having said that, I think the Japanese government can take more robust measures. For example, the government can make it mandatory for the Japanese corporation to disclose gender data in their financial annual report. Or they can try to have more Japanese corporations disclose gender pay gap, like the UK government did. I also hope that Japanese government can take more proactive role in promoting more flexible work style, because it's already been accelerated by COVID-19, but the flexible work style will eventually have more women work full-time rather than taking a part-time job, which will have more women promoted to the senior positions.
Thank you, Mari-san. Ida, in the U.S., do you think there's a role for the U.S. government? What can the governments do to empower women in the workplace and to promote workplace diversity?
Well, Josh, I think that it's critical that the private and public work very closely and in alignment to promote advancement, right? I think we have to partner very well together. It can't be one or the other. I think the power of collaboration in achieving those results is very, very important. The late Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who is an idol for many of us, said women belong in all places where decisions are being made. And I couldn't agree more with that statement. And we all have to make a concerted effort to help advance that cause. So as I said, California's made great progress, but look at what the UK's done, right? In that they've mandated 30% females on senior management positions across the United Kingdom. And we followed suit when we saw that. We said, we'd like to sign up for that 30% as well. And Citi has committed to putting 30% female leaders and managers in our European, Middle East, and Africa businesses over the next several years. So again, it goes to say that, it's both. I think they need to partner very well with one another. And I think it's important that we all commit to measuring the progress, because when we put numbers out and we hold ourselves accountable against those numbers, results happen.
Thank you, Ida. I'd like to ask about your personal experience and views. What advice do you have for women and everyone else who's watching, who looks up to you for the successful role you've played and the achievements you've made thus far?
Two things really stand out for me. Number one, don't be afraid to take risks. You've got to push yourself slightly out of your comfort zone. Just from my personal experience, I went from investment banking to fashion to finance and private banking. No one would have thought that that would be possible, but I was willing to step outside of my comfort zone to take big risks with my career and help me, be where I am today. So don't sit quietly and not be willing to take the risk. I think that it's very important that we challenge ourselves continuously and regularly. Secondly, I would say that women should be their own biggest cheerleaders. Okay, we have to tout our accomplishments. We have to express why we're deserving of that next job. We have to raise our hands more often for that next job, and do so when we're not 120% ready. It's okay. That's, again, that challenge and that risk taking that I talked about. So I think it's very important that we think about that we think about, raising our hands early and often, speaking up for ourselves, being our own personal advocates, and pushing ourselves slightly out of the comfort zone.
Mari-san, you've already mentioned about Japan and the unconscious bias, not just in Japan, but in the rest of the world. What has your personal experience been like as one of the senior women at fast retailing? What advice would you give to Japanese women who want to shine on the global stage?
Well, I just heard that next year's theme of the International Women's Day is hashtag each for equal, meaning that each of us is responsible for our actions to promote gender equality, challenge stereotype, fight bias, improve the situation of women, but we should work more collectively so that our voice will be better heard. I hope all women, and especially Japanese women, to be more vocal because it is not only for us, but it's for our business, for our economy, and for our society, and for the next generation. I think it's our responsibility that we raise our voice more so that our voice are better heard.
Thank you so much to the two of you for this inspirational conversation today. Do you have any final words for us, Mari-san?
Well, thank you very much for a great talk today. I already learned a lot from Ida, and I think that Japan has a lot to learn from the US, and hopefully that we can continue this kind of talk between two countries.
How about you, Ida?
I just wanted to tag on to what Mari-san just said. I think in the Asian culture, oftentimes we are taught to work hard, put our head down, excel individually. And it's very important for us to actually think slightly differently when we're trying to work our way up in the corporate ladder. It's about teamwork. It's about partnership. It's about embracing your partners and leveraging one another. So, again, I think that that's a very important factor also, is to think about how we can collectively succeed versus individually succeed, which many of us are accustomed to. And also, I think on the academic side, we're always taught to, put our heads down, work hard, and be modest. And again, to what I said earlier, it's very important for us to highlight accomplishments, in the corporate world in order to excel. So a couple of different nuances there, just coming from the Asian background that we should be aware of. So final thought from me, we can't just be women helping advance women. We need to embrace our male counterparts. The males are there to help us collectively break the barriers and move and advance forward. So it's very important that we also include our male counterparts to the equation and support the rise.
いかがでしたか? We hope you enjoyed this Nichibei Global Talks. For me, there were so many takeaways that were inspirational. The leadership of these two speakers is testament to their company's serious commitments to promote workplace diversity and women's leadership, but there's still a long way to go in both countries. As you heard, Fast Retailing's Uniqlo had their first female CEO in 2019, and Citigroup has announced the appointment of their first female CEO to take the lead in February 2021 that's already making headways in the financial world. From disclosing gender pay gap numbers to providing training on unconscious bias to having affinity groups to advance diversity discussions, these companies are leading the private sector to drive progress and workplace diversity. They also believe greater diversity contributes to business success, whether by matching the diversity of the clients and customers who they serve or by driving innovation. As I listened to our speakers, I was inspired not only for my own daughter, but also for me as a leader to continue to be part of the efforts to support the rise of women and work toward this new, inclusive, diverse future as allies. I look forward to where each of them and their companies continue to lead us in this effort. Please subscribe to our channel and follow us on our social media to stay connected. Most importantly, thank you again for joining our Nichibei Global Talks. This is our final episode of this series, at least for now, but we'll continue to keep our US-Japan dialogues active at Japan Society, so we hope to see you again soon. Until then, please stay safe and well. 皆さん、今後ともどうぞよろしくお願いいたします。